the way that owners are looking at these buildings, the way that owners are looking at what they do is changing as well. And it's why what Sala's talking about is so important for builders to understand. So I want you to talk about, how they're changing their focus on this asset that they're receiving, and how they're looking at it differently, because I think people need to understand that.
It's an economic asset. And how do we communicate? One of the things we've been developing has been for bankers, because you're really talking about this asset and the time value of money. And so a lot of times on projects, we talk about schedule and we talk about estimate or the money, and we keep those separate. And what we really need to be looking at is dollar time in this asset, and what is this cost, and how do we increase this efficiency? Because if we don't have this built environment, our clients can't make money. And how efficient, what kind of environment are we creating for the workers for outputs, whether that's a data center or a commercial building or a factory, we have to have these things in place. And so that's really what we're working on. And we're all on the same team. And a lot of times we're fighting Murphy Law on the other side. That's kind of how I look at it. Everybody's on my team and we're just trying to avoid Murphy.
But we like to blame each other for Murphy. I think the future is that we understand Murphy's going to happen, but we all have to have a layer of trust that, hey, we trust each other, and, the play's broken. We got to play a little backyard football for a little bit, right?
The one thing that's interesting about the industry is, what used to be, hey, you can't get into the weeds. There's too many variables. I love the Gen Zs. They will literally say, one of my sons, or we hear them, 70 variables. And if I miss one, that could be the key variable. So that's the one part where the technology and us as the baby boomers, we don't get to play the ball of, hey, this is too complex. These guys, some of the stuff that they're able to come up with, we should start to take a lot of these variables out. And that's one of the things that we're really working on is, the prediction of weather, tying into supply chain. We track ships coming from China. I can give you the length and times and the standard deviations. So that's the other thing that's really interesting about this, is really getting everybody into the game and getting certain people, bringing people into this big head cross-functional team that have never had a place at the table to really solve the problem.
It creates a great environment for Sala, for someone like you who thinks on that scale, who thinks on that digital level. So I'm interested, as you hear Chris talk about that, you're chomping at the bit for like things you can do. I mean, Chris, you talked about the, knowing your supply chain, knowing your standard deviations. And Sala, I'm interested, what are your thoughts on, how that gets reflected? Those 70 different things you've got to control gives you some opportunity.
Absolutely. And it's about that opportunity that with what Chris has developed and what he continues to create for the industry as an industry pioneer is that we're taking out the feelings and the emotions out of the equation. That the built environment industry is very opinionated industry, and it has a lot to do with what you've learned in the past and how you navigated similar situations in the past. So then you have your opinion of what needs to be done next, and it's kind of based on your gut feeling. But what Chris is doing and what he's capable of doing is backing up those decisions with data and evidence, and also allowing people to evaluate the what if scenario. That what if we make the traditional conservative decision, but then what if we do something different? Because a lot of times Chris has spoken with me about how people continue to repeat the same processes and the same tools, but expect a different outcome. If we don't change any of the variables and add more variables into the analysis and test out the different scenarios and simulate them, even animate them with the modern tools, we can never change our expectations. We will just continue repeating what we did in the past and then tapping ourselves on the shoulder that, yeah, I repeated what I did yesterday and kind of getting good at it. But now with the digital transformation and digital knowledge, we can actually start having more meaningful discussions about what is it that people actually want. The tools that Chris has and has been developing, it enables us to communicate completely differently than in the past. in the past, we had to actually build something tangible and then ask the client that, is this what you wanted? And then that changed, or led into the change order management and the RFIs and all that good stuff. But now we can literally create visual data in the format of building information models or digital twins and the metaverse. But then we can do all kinds of data visualizations that then show us the graphs and show us the proof in the pudding that what is it that we are actually talking about, and not only reflecting what happened in the past and glorifying that we have a lot of historical data to show how things went, but now we can start forecasting things. And that's what I'm really excited about, that we can leverage the data that we've accumulated from the past to create a trajectory that where are we actually heading towards? Are we on the right track? And are we on budget? Are we on time? Are we actually achieving what we are set up for? And then what happens next? The built environment is never finished. It's never done. It continues to change. So we are living in very interesting times at the moment, that now we have the technology and tools and the new generation of people that are wanting to do things differently, and we can do it together and create the knowledge transfer that is needed between the generations.